You watch when one eye open, let's open up both of those eyes, yo. You feel me? So one of the things I want to talk about too, man, so a lot been going on in the market right now, right? And so because so much been going on in the market, we're looking at a few things happen, yo. We're looking at sector rotations. We see that tech is taking a beating, right? And so what we understand that when we see tech taking a beating, it don't necessarily mean that we need to get out of tech, right? But we also need to understand that there's a switch like from growth to value. So this happens often, right? What happens often is you'll see the market switch from growth to value, from value back to growth, right? So we talk about that. So a lot of times what you'll see is you'll see the market go from value to growth and then from growth to value. Right. So let's talk about that first, like Trap, like what the hell is growth to value, value to growth? Like what does that mean? Right. So there's your value stocks, right? So values are great businesses that have been around for a while. They provide a lot of value to the economy, to the markets, right? These are great businesses. They don't have a ton of growth. They still growth at consistent rate. Right. So we'll see the market make that transition. Right. And so when you find value stocks, we're talking about stocks like Cummins, which is the engine stock, which is one of the stocks I actually like that stock. You'll see stocks like Caterpillar, John Deere. Right. These are value based businesses. Right. Things that are valuable to the economy. Right. It's not a cycle. Those are different types of stocks. Right. And then we have growth stocks. So these are stocks that typically will outperform the market over time. Right. What we know is we have to understand that we have to find a balance as investors, right? We can't water whip the portfolio, y'all. We can't water whip the portfolio, y'all. So what do I mean by water whipping the portfolio, right? So we cannot have too much of one thing or one type of stock in our portfolio. That's right. Growth stocks are taking a beating right now. So typically what happens is this, y'all, right? So when the economy is going through sell-offs, and sell-offs typically happen, this is what happens during a sell-off, right? So let's talk about what happened earlier during the pandemic, right? So during the pandemic, what typically happened is we saw a lot of tech stocks take off. That's where a lot of the growth is in technology, right? So we saw that happen. Why did that happen, right? Because we saw that we were already in the tech space, but the world went real tech heavy, right? We went tech hard. So what happens is one of the things I teach in the Wallstreet Trappin course that we added was understanding different market cycles, right? So we understand that in down bear markets, in recessions, things like that, tech is one of those sectors that grows often. It grows fast because what happens is the world starts to adjust and the world starts looking for remedies to situations, right? Changes are starting to happen. So what happens, we saw that, let's just think about some of the key components that happened during the pandemic. Right. And we can now understand why that shift went to what? Shift went to growth stocks. Right. So what happens is we saw that people went to working from home. Right. So when you work from home, what has to happen? Zoom, all of these things shot up. Right. What do we saw shoot up to? Right. Fintech. Why? People not paying for stuff with cash and all that. Right. We see that happening. Streaming services. We saw that go through the roof, right? And so we saw the emergence of a new normal. We saw the emergence of new things happening. We saw the emergence of what happens is we saw solutions. When we saw problems get solved, we see there's growth there, right? We see growth in solutions. So write that down in your head. Growth is in the solutions. Value stocks aren't typically the solutions anymore. Right. So when we see the economy in a recession, we see problems emerge. The growth is always in the solution. Right. So when we're looking for growth stocks, we're looking for growth companies. Right. The growth is always in the solutions. So with value stocks, you won't too much see the solution because the value stocks may be former remedies or reoccurring remedies. So let's talk about it. Growth is in the solution. So let's think about growth stocks. What are they? They are stocks that are in essence that can typically outperform the market at a rapid pace. Right? Growth stocks can typically outperform the market at a rapid pace. So growth stocks can probably give you anywhere from 15% on up. 15% and up. They can probably give you that often. Let's think about Amazon. Is it still growing? Is Amazon still a growth? Yes, it is. Tesla. All right, so let's get back to what are the solutions that Amazon is solving? Yes, no problem. So what are solutions that Amazon is solving? Right? So Amazon is AWS, the biggest web service in the world, right? Are we in the beginning of what the web can do and what the internet can do? Is the internet still growing? Of course it is. It's getting better and better. And so I want you to think about when I say formal remedies. So if you get a cold, your family probably have what? Formal remedies. Your family may have remedies that they use repeatedly when you get a cold, when you get a fever, right? When you get a sore throat, right? Your family has remedies for that, right? Yep, the hottie toddy. Your family has remedies for that. Those remedies are what? Formal remedies, right? But let's say there's something new that come out, right? A new COVID, right? COVID. They had to come up with a new solution, right? And we just use that for example. You know, we're not gonna get too deep and be like, Trap, that thing ain't working and all that. That ain't it, right? You understand what I'm saying? So growth is always in the solution. So let's think about it, right? Tesla, growth stock. Why? EVs, electric vehicles, batteries. That's the solution, right? The solution to what? Cleaner energy. Right? What's the solution to that? Less pollution. There's the solution. Streaming. What's the solution? Why are streaming companies growing? Solution. So people ain't got to go to the movies. And all that Amazon is now cutting movies out. You know what I'm saying? There's the solution. So growth is going to be in solution. Value may be in the remedies. So let's look at some value stocks. That's right. John Deere, value stock. Caterpillar, value stock. Johnson & Johnson, value stock. Procter & Gamble, value stock. Disney, value stock, right? Growth is in the solutions. What are some solutions? Growth, Beyond Meat, solution. We can go what? Tesla again, solution. We can go into Zoom, solution. Snowflake, solution. Right? So we can now look at those and say, okay, I get it, right? So what happens now is, so now we start to understand is this, right? So somebody said that value stocks are boring. Listen, one of the things I love is boring business. One of my favorite businesses is Winnebago, right? One of my favorite businesses is Winnebago. It's a boring business, but if you look at it, it is a business that has performed well over time. I love boring businesses. The trappers know that we love boring businesses, but we won't put our portfolio to sleep, right? We still want to give ourselves excitement, but we find the base in what's boring, right? Boring businesses often give you the great returns. Why do boring businesses give us great returns? Because the TV doesn't focus on them. One of the businesses that performed well for me during the pandemic was United Rentals. Beginning of the pandemic, it was in the top 5 performing businesses during the first 60 to 90 days during the pandemic. Versus the 90 to 120 days, it was one of the top performing stocks. And you like, Trap, how? They don't do nothing but rent machinery out. Performed well. Chipotle. It wasn't on the charts heavy like everybody else. It's really a boring business. It sell burritos. Nobody thought that business would boom the way it did. And then once Trap started talking about it, people looked at it and was like, yo, this thing going crazy. Then we heard CNBC talking about it. Yep, Winnebago's, one of my favorite companies. Right? Boring business. So what we do is we ask ourselves this question, right? So when does it change? Right? So here's how the shift happens. And I want us to understand this, right? This is how the shift happens. This is how the shift happens, and this is how we understand what's going on, so we don't get lost into what's going on, right? Because investors, we can't dictate what's going to happen in the market. We can't even predict what's going to happen in the market. So why waste our time doing it? Why not just understand the different emotions in the market, right? So I like to kind of look at a market as a friend of mine, right? So how many of us have friends that we know? I don't want to use the term bipolar because that's bad. How many of us know people that just have different emotions all the time? Let's say you're in a relationship, right? This is a great example. Let's say you're in a relationship, right? And you're the guy, you're with your girl, right? How many times when you ask your girl what's wrong, she says nothing. And then you be like, babe, what's wrong? She says nothing. But you know something is wrong. Babe, what's wrong? Nothing. All right, cool. So as the man, you're like, I know something wrong. I keep asking you what's wrong. You don't want to tell me what's wrong. So you leave it alone. But then she like, that's the problem right there. You don't really care. In your mind, you're not tripping. Why? Because she's done this 3 million times. You understand that mood she's in. Right? So you understand how to let me just not even push the issue. She'll tell me when it is. And I know the first thing she's going to say is that's the issue. You don't even care no more. You don't even care. You know what I'm saying? But what happens is you start to understand the nature of your girl. Right? So we got to do is start understanding the nature of the market. Babe, you hungry? No. Babe, you sure you're not hungry? No, I'm hungry. You order your food? What does she do? Give me some. You know why you're not mad? Because you knew she was going to do that anyway. You feel what I'm saying? Understanding the habits of the market is the same way. So what do we understand? We understand that in that recession or downturn, we understand that solutions often soar. Right? So when solutions soar, value will be what? We won't perform as well. Right? It won't perform as well. That's okay. Because eventually what has to happen? The people who were in the solutions have to at some point do what? Take profits. As they take profits, where do they go? Back to the old remedies. Because these are clutch. They've been around forever. Y'all with me? So as the growth stocks have their cycle, Wall Street says, cool, we're betting on growth here. As value grows, at some point you'll see the market start to sell off. And the only thing that's happening at this point is Wall Street is now taking profits, putting it back into growth. So what are we seeing happen right now? What we're essentially seeing happen right now is this. We're seeing tech stocks get whipped. They're getting beat. But we're seeing value stocks outperform. So what happens is, so how do we survive these cycles? How do we survive these cycles when we don't like trap? I don't know what's going to happen. It's cool. We don't have to know. One of the things we do now is we start understanding the businesses that we love. We find that circle of competence that we love. Now, let me say this right quick, y'all. This is one of the things that happens often. Social media says this is a great stock. The TV says this is a great stock. We're going 3 different ways because you get on social media, this person said they love this stock. You get on Instagram, this person said they love this stock. You're getting on YouTube, this person says they love this stock. You get on Twitter, that person says they love this stock. You get on Wall Street Best, they say they love this stock. You're torn between the two because you haven't found what? Your investing identity. You haven't found your investing identity. People be like, Trap, you got on this stock, it surged 3,000%. I be like, nah, I'm good. They be like, man, you tripping. I'm like, nah, like sometimes I'm good enough to say, yo, I don't understand that business. I just put it in my too hard box. And if I put it in my too hard, like if it's too hard or too complicated for me to understand, I'm okay with it. If I can't draw my own investment thesis to it, I'm okay with it. I don't mind missing out on some things that I don't understand, because if it goes sideways, I want to understand what it is that's causing this business to go sideways. One of the reasons why we mess up big is because we panic sell in stocks because we don't understand the business. When we don't understand the business, there's a form of confusion. Anytime there's confusion, we often make mistakes. When we see the market taking away profits, one of the things we have to understand is when we take away profits, we want to move those profits somewhere else, right? We want to move those profits somewhere else. We don't want to just take profits and then take the profits and then just hold them. We want to take those profits and transition them into something else. And that's something we'll be talking about as well. And so let me just give y'all some game right quick about 3 ways. I want to talk about something, right? I want to talk about this right quick before we get into something else I want to get into. I want to talk about that for a company to grow, for a growth company to continue to be great, it has to do 2 things. Scale up and preserve profit margins. It has to be able to scale and preserve profit margins. And there's 3 things that a business can do that. 1 is called scalable growth, 2, sustainable margins, and 3, the right price. Right? The right price. Those are 3 ways that we have to learn how to do that. And we also don't want to fall victim to businesses that just play dividends. So now you're like, Trap, what are you talking about? If a business pays dividends, that's what I'm looking for. And we'll talk about how management can run a company down by still paying dividends. Right? How management can run a company down by still paying dividends. Because here's the thing. The company pays the dividend, right? The company pays the dividend on the front end. It's the money that you see right there. Right? It's the money that you see right there. But here's the thing. What if revenues start declining? Revenues is the money that the business is bringing in from everything. So what if the revenue starts to decline? Well, if the revenue is declining and the company is still paying a dividend, that now tells us at some point the dividend is what? Majority of the profit. And so if now if the company is paying out the dividend with declining revenues, and if the dividend now represents majority of the profit and they're paying that out, then the business can't do what? The business can't scale. The business can't reinvest because they're paying out of the profit. At this point now, the management team has now run a great business in the ground because of a dividend. So we also going to talk about those dividend traps. And so what happens now is that payout ratio increases. If that payout rate increases and revenue is declining, at some point the balance sheet gets what? Worse. The worse off the balance sheet get, now the company may have to take on debt to keep that dividend in place. We don't want that, right? Again, scalable growth, sustainable growth, and the right prices. Because here's the thing. In order for a company to increase profits, they have to do 2 things, 3 things. Cut back on employees, cut back on spending, or raise prices. And so we're going to break down those 3 ways inside of a business, because one of the great things a business has to do, a business has to be able to do this. A business has to be able to increase prices by 3 to 4% every year. Why? Inflation. If inflation is 2%, the business has to be able to increase prices by 3 to 4%, which may be a nickel, which may be a dime, every year to keep beating inflation to be profitable. Y'all, like, listen, when it comes to breaking down a business, man, they're talking that talk, man, I got y'all. Right?